Hey, this is Dave with Brazos Barbell, and today I'm going to be talking about some of the cues that I'm using for coaching squats and really how to get set up. And then one thing in particular is going to be how to cock back effectively and brace for squatting. So what we're going to be looking at right here is part of my setup in particular, and how we're getting our back tight and really getting the good posture of my trunk and good brace in my core. So what the process is going to be to start off with is that I'm going to be using the bar to get my upper back tight. And really how I'm going to be getting set up is going to be segmentally through each different portion of my body, getting each one set. We're going to start at the top with my shoulders. Then I'm going to work with my midsection, my core, my brace, and then after that I'll get my hips and legs set and get a good tight posture all the way down. So from here, we're starting with the upper back, and I'm using the bar to pull my shoulders down, to retract my scapula, to depress my scapula, and get all of that set. And I'm not too concerned with what my rib cage is doing at this point, but I need to situate myself in a position that I can get the bar shelved on my upper back. So from here, I'm positioning my hips underneath the bar, but really the big thing is that I'm moving from a position where my back was very arched to where I'm moving to where I have now a nice neutral lumbar spine. So if you haven't watched my bracing video, I'll put the link in the description. But for you to be able to do this effectively, you need to have a good understanding of how to brace right here. And so the big mistake I think when people are getting set under the bar is they do a good job of creating tension with their upper backs, and then they push into the bar, but they haven't really created a solid foundation all the way underneath it. And so that's what this position is going to be trying to do. Is it brings your hips back under, it brings your rib cage back down, your pelvis back slightly into instead of quite so much of an anterior tilt, back posteriorly tilting it a little bit, and it allows you a good stable posture. So from here, the cue is just to push straight up into the bar. And I have my hips set slightly behind the bar from this position. So if I'm drawing a straight line down from the bar, my hips are set just a little bit behind it. I don't want to be stacked right underneath it. We're not going to be able to maintain that brace very well. So push your back straight up in the bar, let the bar settle. Nice easy walkout. So from here, this is where I'm going to be using the cueing of cocking my hips back a little bit. And really from the position that I took the unrack, I'm not going to be moving my hips back a whole lot, but I use the cue that we're going to be trying to find the furthest back position that my hips are going to be in from the initiation of the squat. So I don't want to have my hips sitting all the way underneath the bar and then move them back as I go. I want to have them start a little bit further back, and what that does is it allows me to drop a little bit more naturally into the squat without having to have a whole lot of shift from the position of my upper back. So when I initiate the squat here, you can see that my hips aren't going to move very far back, even though I'm breaking knees and hips, and the angle with my trunk is staying largely unchanged. So the position that I take right here will be pretty similar to the position that I get to at the very bottom of the squat. I lean forward a little bit, but I'm trying to create more proprioception, more awareness of really how much my body is moving. So if I start in a very upright position at the top of my squat, and at the bottom of my squat I end up in a very leaned over position, I think it just doesn't create a good opportunity for us to have good awareness of what our body is actually doing. So with this, we can start a little bit more cocked back, good trunk position, good brace, and then we have a little bit stronger, more consistent squat. So the workout that I'm going through right now is a really easy workout. I did a 5x3 with something like 65% of my one rep max back squat. So this was a recovery session. So we're going to be looking at a lot of the warm-ups and how really I'm trying to be very deliberate about those things that we're talking about, that the hips are cocked back, the brace is good every time, and I'm just making sure I have good positioning on every single one of these. So good tight upper back, cue the hips underneath, good brace, push my back into the bar, steady walk out, and then from here we set my hips back, push my air down, drop directly down in the squat. So that's the main key with this, is I'm really trying to make it to where not a whole lot moves. I'm trying to make it to where I'm taking my trunk from my hips up, my hips to my shoulders, basically out of the equation. If I can make it to where that portion of my body is totally stable through the whole lift, then there's not much else to think about. Then I just unlock my knees, unlock my hips, and I drop straight down into the squat without having to cue how far back should my hips go, how far forward should my knees go. I'm in a nice strong position, and I just drop straight down from there. So here's my first working set. I put the belt on. It's more about having a cue to push into the belt, not really about that the belt necessarily helps or anything. But these, if we're comparing the 365 to my 135 empty bar, they should look very, very, very similar. So we're gonna get a little bit of a different angle with this. So we'll be moving around a little bit, and we'll talk about some of the cueing with this. But you can see in this position how I'm really using the barbell to create a shelf to make my upper back flex and to have a good place to actually rest that barbell on. So I'm really working through right there. Once I find a good position, then I'll move to dropping my ribs underneath right here. And so a lot of it, like I said, I'm getting set segmentally. So the first portion is my upper back. From here, I'm rolling my hips under, but I'm rolling my hips under not because that's where I really want them, but the next segment is my abdomen. So I'm rolling my hips back under my shoulders to get a nice brace. And then my hips stay back a little bit behind the bar in this portion, and that's where when I push up into the bar, then that portion doesn't end up quite so tucked under. It'll look a little bit more neutral right there. So from that position that I started, now that I've walked out the squat, we can see that my back angle is going to end up very, very close at the bottom of the squat to where I'm starting. So I'm just trying to create a nice consistent squat and really not have to limit a whole lot. So I lean forward a little bit, my hips move back some, but from rep to rep, there shouldn't be much of a difference from the top to the bottom. So from the front angle, one of the cues that we're going to use, I think that we can get messed up with a little bit, is that I really am trying to drive my chest up. So when we're cueing some of this stuff, like we're cueing the rib cage position to be down right there, sometimes people end up tucking too much with their shoulders, or they end up letting their chest level drop some. I'm really not trying to get my chest level to drop. So as far as the segments going, from this position, I got my chest nice and big, the bar pulled down my back, which should stabilize my thoracic area, my upper body from my about nipples up should be really stable from this position. And then I tuck my rib cage down. So from some of the other angles, it looked like maybe I was a little bit more rounded over. But this is a good shot of really what I'm trying to do. Is I created the nice height upper back, but I was arching a little bit too much. So from there, I pull my hips back underneath me and get a nice solid brace in this area. So from here, then I'll just push my hips straight up into the bar. Nice steady walk out. So this is where the chest up cue kind of comes in. I don't cue chest up. I cue big chest, or I cue lead with your chest. But we have our hips cocked back or sat back a little bit. So I'm not trying to force my chest to be in an unnaturally upright position. I'm just trying to not let that position change much. So big air, push down into my belt, drop straight down, and then I just get my chest moving first before anything else. And I should create a nice, consistent squat. So at the top, the bottom, my trunk angle here looks very similar to where I started. So my last set right here, we can just see nice height upper back, good brace, push my hips up into the bar, breathe my air down into my belt, and drop straight down. So really, with a lot of the cueing that I'm using with squatting, I'm really trying to just make things as simple as I can, and so then from there we take a lot of the thinking out of the squat. So none of this will work if we don't get to where I have a nice brace. If I'm sitting in this position and I have my back is really arched right here, then that's where when I'm cueing the posture where I'm saying to cock your hips back a little bit, in this position where you have a little bit of an angle, this will bug lifters' backs, and I don't really feel like they have a nice solid brace. So we need to make sure that we're doing a good job of using those fundamentals of bracing technique, rib cage down, breathing into it, and making that part nice and stable. So like I said, if you haven't seen that video and if you're not good with that, you need to start there, and don't sacrifice those positions when you're unracking the bar. So we can say forget about the bar. We just we create that brace with your trunk, and then you push your upper back into the bar, and nothing else should change. So that's a little simple squat cue. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to the channel.